Hello, YouTube. I have a fun question here and a couple different ways to talk about it, but let's get started. The question is, I shoot a Glock 34 and I'm on the cusp of M class. I'm super tempted to switch to a Walther 5-inch steel frame match. Do you think it's going to require too much training to make the switch even worth it? This is a very good question and the right kind of question people should be asking. There's also a follow-up question that's going to tie in here quite nicely. I'm in the same boat, but in C class and wanting to buy one once I make A class. So the same type of question. Let's see. Another follow-up was I have a classifier match coming up. If I hit M, I think I'll make the switch after. Yeah, okay. So a bunch of different ways to think about this. I want to talk about the premise of making the decision that you want a different gun to begin with. It's not something I would take lightly. So for me, I shot Tanfoglio pistols for quite a few years. 5 years, 8 years, somewhere in there. So I have, at that point, I had like 4 guns, probably 30 magazines, all the extra support, like every pin and spring you could need, at least 3 or 4 of all those. So hundreds of dollars in guns, magazines, spare parts, familiarity, that if something goes wrong on those guns, I know very quickly at least where to look at or what parts are to go wrong or how to clean it or what part needs to be cleaned, what part doesn't need to be cleaned, how sensitive the magazines are or aren't. All that stuff just comes after an amount of time just with using the guns and becoming familiar and training with them. So then when I make the switch or I decided I wanted to shoot something else, there had to be a need I wanted to fill. I don't really like switching guns just for the sake of somebody gets bored and they want to do something different. I get that happens. But I would recommend if you switch guns, there's something you're looking for, a capability that you don't currently have. For me, I was starting to do more law enforcement military training. The showing up with my nickel-plated sissy pistol would not be appropriate for agency training. So, and that gun has iron sights, which most everyone has a red dot in this world. So I needed a polymer frame gun that could accept a red dot. That was what I was looking for. So switching to the Walther PDP was not something I took lightly. I didn't approach the company like trying to get a deal or anything. I just tried all the different guns that my friends have that are polymer, striker fired, and just saw which gun I liked the best. So there was financially nothing in it for me. I didn't even contacted any company, wasn't interested in contacting the companies, wasn't interested in the price point on the gun, as long as they're within reason. If it was a $10,000 pistol, that'd be a different conversation. But all the polymer striker fired guns are going to be $600 or $700 or less. So I just looked at all the options and saw which one I liked the feel of the best as far as how it fit my hands. I shot the best, talked to people that then shot the gun, what's the track record with the gun, do a lot of parts break, how many rounds they fire before you have to clean them. So I'm not trying to fill out an Excel sheet, but just talking to a couple friends that I know that have the pistols and just give me the real deets. Are there any issues with the guns, shortcomings? Are they good guns? What do you think? Would you shoot them? Would you keep shooting them or would you buy them knowing what you know now? Because that's what I wanted to know. Tell me what's going on with these guns before I invest a bunch of factors of me. Time. So my time to get trained with the new guns, the amount of ammunition it'll take to get up to speed, the cost of the guns themselves, and then really the experience with the guns. That stuff is priceless because now after shooting, I've got a couple handfuls of Walther pistols and all the supporting parts and the magazines and belt rigs. Now I have a really good take on, honestly, the guns don't really require being cleaned. I've never taken an extractor out of any of my guns to this day to clean behind them and no issues. The mags, I just brush them if they fall in sand or something where it's loose. Otherwise, they're good to go. But all this stuff just happens after I've got years and tens or hundreds of thousands of rounds through these guns. So it's not just an easy switch that something's new and shiny or something you want. But anyway, so I think it's important if you're going to switch guns, something that you want or need. Then, to the point that I was just explaining for all the investments of just, in my example, how much an investment of myself it was in my time, energy, money for the pistols themselves. I wanted a couple of them, extra magazines, holster rig, getting all that stuff set up, the time, the experimentation to see how I want the gear set up and what works and what doesn't work. I want to make sure that, like, if I'm going to get started on all that, I might as well get started on it sooner rather than later. So if I wanted to wait until I hit a certain benchmark or a standard before I started that, it's like, in my 2 cents, as long as you can financially afford it, if you already know there's something the gun doesn't do, or a capability you want, or something else you want, as long as it's not creating a financial issue and you're able to, just buy the gun when you've determined that's the gun you need. However, there could be a time where it's a good idea to sit on it for a couple weeks and just think it over and be like, hey, is that really smart for me? Is the grass really greener? Or anything along those lines, because, like I've said, I really think it's a big commitment to switch platforms, especially on handguns. On rifles, they're kind of all similar. As long as it's an AR-15, each one has maybe a little nuances or they're gassed a little bit differently. It's all roughly the same. On handguns, they're very different because the way the frame feels, the diameter, the length, the trigger pulls, just all the options. So for me, it's important to get the one you want or the one I really like, make a decision like, yep, that's the one. I have the money. I'm going to purchase the gun now and just start on that, I don't know, journey or exploration to discover how the guns work for me, what I need to do or don't do, and how they perform. So I don't necessarily love the idea of waiting until you reach a certain goal, because if you wait to reach the goal, if the gun you're shooting doesn't have a capability you need, so I'm not saying this is true, but let's say you're shooting a polymer gun with a really heavy trigger and you want a steel frame gun with a really light trigger. Take that however you want, but in the example, the polymer frame gun kicks more because it's light, it doesn't fit your hands really well, you can't grip onto it really well, and the trigger's really heavy. Like, that's a bunch of shortcomings. It's going to be tough to overcome some of those. But if there's a pistol that it's got a better trigger, it's steel frame, you like the way it feels, just get that now and start working on it, because you're going to start building up your ability with that gear and experimenting with your grip to see how you need to grip the pistol and shoot it well and all those things. All right, so that's, with that out of the way, it's a big piece of yourself, your time, your money to change. So then to the original question, how much does it take to switch from gun to gun? Is it even worth it? That question's kind of up to you. So for somebody at M class, I don't expect everybody to watch this be familiar. USPSA has letters for classification, so it's DCBAM, which is master, then GM, which is the highest one. So this person in master class or M class is like just under the top classification. So just knowing that fact means pretty good at shooting, better than most people you'd see in an open enrollment or police kind of setting. Very, very talented shooter to reach that, compared to the large public. So if you're already really, really good, like, is it even worth it? That's a good question to ask. Like, is the juice worth the squeeze to change, to get rid of all the stuff you've already accumulated, or set it aside to restart that thing all over for buying stuff? And then what's the gain? I think time-wise, to train with a different gun or get used to it, like this example specifically, Glock to a striker-fired Walther steel frame, there's a lot of similarities because they're both striker-fired, so same trigger system. The Walther might have a little bit less distance for the trigger to pull or travel, but otherwise very comparable. The block is polymer framed. The Walther, talking about the SF steel frame, is heavier, so you're going to have a weight difference. So that'll be a little bit of an adjustment. It'll be more pistol to hold on to as you're bringing it up to your island on a draw, or moving it between targets, just more to swing around. Felt recoil maybe is a little bit less with the steel frame. Some people get really used to polymer frame guns because they do flex a bit, especially in hot ammo. So I don't think there's right or wrong there. It's like preference, whatever you like better. So the amount of time just the gun handling part, where you're drawing, doing the magazine changes and moving the gun around, that could take a couple weeks to a month, depending on how much someone trains and how quickly they adopt the new system. So it could be a month just to get all the gun handling stuff down throughout it. Maybe you're shooting once or twice a week. Depending on the person, the raw ability, and a bunch of other factors, it could be 2 to 6 months to get up to speed where you are with the previous gun. Just because, like I said, that level of being really, really familiar, knowing how the gun works, knowing how it feels in your hand, knowing how to grip it, knowing the angle of the magazines for the reloads to get into the gun, knowing how you draw it, how your holster's set up, all that kind of stuff. As much as you can try to mimic it, It's never exactly identical. Switching between platforms, there will always be little nuances. So, I mean, like to go back to the original question, is it worth it? I don't know. I don't know that it requires too much training to make it worth it. That was the last part of the question. I don't think that's the case. I think it's depends on what it's worth to you. Because some people love just having a new piece of gear. It's exciting and fun, especially if you've shot, for this example, Glocks for 10 years. Kind of bored, kind of old news. I'm not saying that I like Glock pistols, but to you, if it's something that you're kind of bored with, you've done that before, you want something new and exciting or something just different to train with, then maybe that would also motivate you to want to practice because it's fun, it's new, you don't have it all figured out, and you like working on the intricacies, or there's a little, the grip is a better shape, or the reach of the trigger is better, or the metal frame gun or felt have a little bit less felt recoil. You're excited about that part. So if there's some aspect that excites you about the change that you want to do, then do it. And worst case, maybe you buy the other gun, you shoot it for a little bit and decide it's not for you and sell it to somebody else and go back to the one you know. I mean, that could happen too. The only word of caution with that is you have to at least give it a time. Give it an amount of time. So a month or two of serious training, because if you just go 1 week, something that you've made one of the higher classifications in USPSA with, switching to a brand new gun that you don't have any experience with, you're not going to be shooting the same scores in a week. It just doesn't work that way. So anyway, I don't have a firm answer to the question other than the follow-up questions were about holding on to get that new gun or to treat yourself until you earn a benchmark. I don't think there's any truth to that. I think if you're able to financially afford it, buy the thing you want that'll excite you to train or will fit your hands better or give you a capability you want. Just start training with that now. As far as if you're already pretty good at shooting and you have something working well, you want to change, question's kind of all up to you. But as far as how long it will take, I'd say 2 to 6 months, depending on the person and the amount of practice that you know, how many rounds, how many hours of dry fire, that kind of stuff. But no one just a couple weeks out is going to be as good as they ever were with the other gun. I just don't think it's possible. So hopefully that answers your question, gives you some things to think about, at least if you're in that boat or one of those people deciding you want to get a different gun, but you're like waiting to reward yourself. If you have any other questions, comments, drop them below. I try my best to read through the questions. Like, share, subscribe, I guess, if you want. If not, I don't care. But at any event, I appreciate you watching.